Welcome everyone. Today's topic is multifamily investing. Now, the reason why this is such an important topic is because if you want to accomplish wealth and passive income in real estate, that is typically done through owning rentals. And guess what? You have different asset types from condos, townhomes, meaning attached properties, to single family homes and multi-unit. Typically, you have residential multi-unit, that means 2 to 4 units. Anything over 5 units is considered commercial, and it's a different ballgame. We're going to be focusing on 2 to 4 flats today. Okay, now the reason that you need to focus on multi-unit is because of different factors that are very critical. So we're going to put here single family home and then multi-unit. Okay, so let's go over the benefits, okay, of each one of them. So number one, single family homes, typically you get better tenants, okay, better quality tenants. Number two, its appreciation is higher in single family homes than in multi-unit. And the reason why is because there's more demand for multi-units. So it's supply and demand. That is why appreciation is higher on single family homes than in multi-unit. Another thing that is here that is very important, it's easier to purchase, okay? Why? Because here you have access to funding, if it makes sense, just as you would for multi-unit. However, skin on the game is going to be less on single family homes. So you're looking at least 10 to 15% down. Whereas in multi-unit, even though it's sort of residential, they want you to have at least 15% skin on the game on multi-unit up to 25%. Okay, so it all depends on the lender. So it's a little bit more expensive, but one of the biggest benefits of multi-unit is cash flow, okay? Cash flow. One of the drawbacks is turnover. So you're gonna have a lot of turnover. Why? Because there's not that high pride of ownership, whereas in single family homes, people stay there longer, they take care of the property better than in multi-unit. So you're gonna have to deal with many more tenants, right? And they're not going to take care of the property as well as if you were to have a single family home. So that's the main reason. Now let's dive into analyzing. Let's dive into analyzing the multi-unit. So what is it that is important when looking at multi-units? Okay, that's something that I want to share with you because typically investors disregard many of the critical expenses that you incurred with multi-unit that you don't with single family home. So single family home is super simple because guess what? You get a tenant and they pay for all the utilities. However, when you buy a multi-unit, guess what? You're gonna need to pay for common electric. So we're talking about the common areas, right? The front or back staircases, the utility room, right? If you have common washer and dryer, then you're gonna need to pay for that separately, okay? You also need to pay for water, common water. So you won't have separate meters for water, okay? So that's gonna be something to keep in mind. So let's go over the expenses that you're gonna need to cover when you analyze multi-unit, okay? I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so let's go over this multi-unit. And this applies for 2, 3, 4, any number of units, okay, 2 and more, okay? So first of all, down payment, as I mentioned earlier, you're gonna need to account for at least 15% down. Okay, so down payment here in this case, we're just assuming 20-25% down. Okay, that's something to play safe by. Next, you're gonna need to know the rent roll for the properties. Typically, multi-units are rented. It's very hard to find a property that is totally vacant. And actually that means the objective, right? You want a cash flowing property, turnkey, that you buy already. Now, taxes obviously are typically higher. Insurance is gonna be obviously higher. Now, this is something that you won't pay when you have a single family home. That's gas, right? Now, gas applies to the dryer or to the heating gas, because many multi-units have water heaters, okay? So you're gonna have a separate meter just for the gas to heat up the entire building, or you're gonna have a big furnace in the basement that is heating up the entire building. So this is one of the highest expense that you're gonna incur when owning a multi-unit, gas or fuel. Trash. You know, when you pay taxes for a single family home, it's super easy, right? You just pull out the container and then they picked it up once a week. Well, it doesn't happen like that with multi-unit. With multi-unit, you're gonna need to hire a dumpster, 20, 10, 20, 50 yard dumpster. So that's an additional expense that you need to incur on a monthly basis that you don't even think about when you own a single family home. So right now, so far, we added fuel, trash, water, okay? When you own a single family home, guess what? The tenant pays for water, all the utilities, landscaping, snow removal, the whole 9 yards. Well, with multi-unit, you don't have separate water meters. You only have one water meter, okay? So at this point, we have gas, we have water, we have trash, and then we also have electric, okay, common electric. So you have front and back staircases. You're gonna need to pay for that common electric. So typically you have an extra electric meter just for the common areas, okay? Obviously now you're gonna need to keep those clean, so you need to pay somebody to keep it nice. So that's an extra expense that you're covering. So as you can see, I'm adding extra expenses that are gonna lower your cash flow, but guess what? Still, properties are gonna cash flow way better when you own a multi-unit. And guess what? The cost to buy, let's say, a 2-flat is gonna be cheaper per unit, okay, than if you were to buy a single family home, okay? So we're gonna go over some examples. Something that is not common, but it happens. When you buy buildings within an association, you're gonna pay HOA, Homeowners Association. So that's something, again, that you need to consider. If you belong to an association, because you need to follow the regulations, the bylaws, so that's something to be aware of. Now, maintenance, we always allocate a budget for maintenance, for repairs, whether it's single family home or it's a multi-unit. So typically we like to allocate about $100 per month per door, okay? Something very, very important that a lot of people disregard, okay? Property management. That's the job that you don't want to take on, okay? As an investor, you don't want to waste your time taking phone calls in the middle of the night because of a leaky toilet. You don't want to be chasing tenants, trying to collect rents. You are not going to be able to enforce late fees. You may forget to renew leases. So there's a lot that goes with property management, especially for multi-unit. So this is how we do it, and what I've learned in the past 2.5 years. You've got to put a professional property management companies on multi-unit. Why? Because of what I told you earlier, the quality of the tenancy is not going to be as high as for single family homes. So they're going to need more repairs. They're going to generate more phone calls, and they may not always pay on time, okay? So that is why when you hire a professional property management company, they're going to make sure that they enforce late fees, that they issue a 5-day notice automatically if they haven't paid by the 5th. They're going to make sure that they're on top of the tenant landlord ordinance. They're going to be on top of renewals. They're going to send out statements on a monthly basis. That's how we like it. That's how you need to manage multi-units, okay? And also something that is super important, when you look at multi-unit properties, over 90% of the times they're gonna be occupied, and that's the ultimate objective. You don't wanna buy a multi-unit that is vacant, that needs a lot of work, because it could be very expensive and it's gonna be very time consuming. So what happens is that oftentimes most multi-unit require maintenance, okay? So when that happens, obviously there's gonna be more headaches. You're gonna have issues with plumbing, perhaps electric, things are gonna just break. Whereas when you buy a single family home, typically you're gonna buy it vacant. So guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna rehab the property. And therefore, when you rehab the property, you're touching many areas. You're going to leave it in a nice shape, rentable way that will give you less headaches when it comes to maintenance. That's the big difference. This is vacant when you buy it. This is occupied. So you won't be able to do much rehabbing when you buy it. And that's the ultimate objective, right? Whereas here, you're going to be doing some rehabbing. So typically, we tend to manage the ones that we put a lot of and make it pretty much new. Our team manages these single-family homes for the most part. But multi-unit, we have 4 multi-units. For sure, we give it to a property management company, okay, that charges a flat fee per door, and they use our crew. Because one of the things that I didn't like about property management companies is that they charge you an arm and a leg for repairs, and they charge you a percentage of your rental income. So we didn't want to pay or use a company that would tap into our rental income, because every year we tend to increase rents. So we just wanted to pay a flat fee. So now we're using a company that you pay a flat fee, $50 per door, and they use our crew so that we can have a good control on maintenance expenses. Okay, so now you're gonna add all the expenses, right? So you're gonna add taxes, insurance, fuel, trash, water, electric, cleaning, maintenance, HOA, and boom, you have your total operating expenses, okay? Now, this is one of the most important ratios, okay? Please make a note. You have the net operating income, okay? Net operating income, that is your total rents minus your total operating expenses. So operating expenses are the expenses that you need to incur to keep the property running, per se. So NOI is going to be one of your most important ratios when analyzing multi-units. We're not finished yet, okay? Because we have not taken into account principal and interest. Obviously, you're going to have a mortgage on these properties because we want to leverage from other people's money. So you need to pay principal and interest, okay? So now at this point, we're gonna take the yearly principal and interest. So this is separate because this is called the debt service. What you need to pay the lender is called the debt service, which is different from what it takes to run the property. Those are operating expenses. So now, when you combine both expenses, the debt service, which is principal interest, and then you take the operating expenses that are the ones shown on the screen, then you are going to end up with your actual cash flow, okay? How much, what's the bottom line, right? After you pay all expenses, including the debt service, what's your cash flow, right? So that's how we look at cash flow. And obviously we divide that by the number of units. We want to know the monthly cash flow per door, okay? So we would like to see at least 300 cash flowing per door, okay? Now, there's another ratio that is used for multi-unit. This is mostly for commercial properties. The cap rate, okay? Cap rate is driven by the location. So the better neighborhoods are going to have a lower cap rate, whereas the more challenging neighborhoods are going to have a higher cap rate. So a cap rate is the return on the investment. So the cap rate helps you evaluate properties based on the location, price, and income, okay? However, we don't typically pay too much attention to the cap rate. What we focus on is two ratios: cash flow per door per month. That's super critical. That's the most important ratio, because guess what? If you cash flow over $300 per door, guess what? You are going to meet the lender's criteria. This is a super important ratio. That's the debt coverage ratio. So this is used primarily for lenders. So I'm going to show you what the formula is for this. So we're going to take the net operating income divided by the debt service. Okay, as you can see, I have the NOI divided by the debt service. So what this means is they want to know, in this case, the banks want to know that based on your net operating income, you're going to be able to pay the mortgage. That's what it boils down to. And not only that, but you're going to have a surplus cash flow of at least 20%. So they're going to take all your rents minus your expenses, and they want to make sure that you have enough to not only pay the mortgage, but also all the operating expenses to run the property. And on top of that, you need to have a surplus of 20%. So they're looking for at least a 1.2 debt coverage ratio. So we are not going to look at properties that the debt coverage ratio is below 1.2. So as you can see, all of these are way higher. So anything over 1.5, it's really good. So as you can see, this is a 1.7 debt coverage ratio. And as you can see, if I scroll to the right, cash flow per door is $347. Okay, so the higher the cash flow, the higher the debt coverage ratio. Okay, so that's what the bank is looking for, that not only are you able to pay all your operating expenses, including debt service, but that you end up with positive cash flow. And that's exactly what we're looking for, and why we like to focus on multi-unit, because of cash flow. So far, are there any questions on this quick analysis that we've gone through? Any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh.
Teresa.
Hey, how are you all today?
Very
I'm so glad I finally found you. Yes. So I'm learning about the cap rate and what have you, right? So you're saying that the higher the cap rate, which is more than 1.7, right? And if
You
the
mean the
debt
debt
rate
coverage
is
ratio?
high,
The
yeah,
debt
the debt coverage
Yes.
ratio,
Yeah,
that
it's critical.
that means it's good, right? That means that
Yes.
that it's good, that that will indicate that you're doing well with the mortgage company. Like you're
Exactly.
okay. So what does the net operating expense? Is that the expenses and
Okay, so the net operating income, it's your rents minus your operating expenses. So expenses that you need to incur to keep the property running.
right?
You're gonna need to pay taxes, insurance. For multi-unit, you're gonna need to pay utilities such as gas, common electric, water, trash, maintenance, cleaning, all of those expenses combined.
Okay.
So then that's going to give you your rent minus your operating expenses. It's going to give you the net operating income. So that's sort of like your cash flow. However, you have not yet paid the mortgage, the principal and interest. So that is why NOI is important, but it doesn't give you what the bottom line you're going to get every single month. So you need to obviously take out the principal and interest that you're going to pay every month, and that's going to be your cash flow. So when we analyze properties, we only want to know two numbers. What's my positive cash flow per month per door? It's going to need to be over 250. And what's my debt coverage ratio? My debt coverage ratio needs to be 1.2 or higher. Okay. Now, as you can see, let me give you this relationship right here. The property that cash flows $131 per door, the debt coverage ratio is in the borderline, like 1.29, right? But when you look at properties that cash flow over $300, your debt coverage ratio is going to be higher than 1.5. So when you have a debt coverage ratio of 1.2 and higher, it's a requirement for lenders to not only give you money up front for the purchase, but also on the back end. When you refinance, they're going to ask you for at least a 1.2 debt coverage ratio. If you don't meet that, you might need to have money stuck in the property. So they might not be able to, you won't do a cash out for sure. They might do a rate and term loan, meaning they just give you what you owe, because they want you to have on the back end at least 25% equity. But let's just focus on the two ratios that you need to meet. Okay, cash flow. It's gonna needs to be over 250, 300 per month. Focus on that.
300. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So when you analyze a property, should you get like the year month rent roll, like 12 months rent roll, to see how they're doing on the rents when you analyze the property to see if it's good or not?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Or what if they just give you 6 months? That's not good enough, right? It's good to get 12 months instead of 6 months.
So what I want to see is leases. I want to see the leases and the rent rolls. So in the last year, I want to make sure that, you know, that they've been paying rent, right? That they're not behind.
Okay.
That's what's really important.
Okay. That's good.
So,
you answered my questions.
Let me show you. Great questions. 1530 Fifth Avenue. Okay, so let me see. So we own this building. We are actually right now renting one of the units. It should be rented actually this evening as we speak. The leasing agent is meeting the new tenants, but I just want to show you the pictures.
Okay.
Supposed to be on the MLS. Okay, maybe it's this one. Yeah, I think it's this one. Yeah, so this is it. This is the building. So obviously you should favor brick buildings over siding, right? It's just gonna add more value. Now let's look at the pictures. So in here, when you look at a multi-unit, is number of bedrooms. If you get 3 bedrooms, that's awesome. 3 bedroom, 1 bath, 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath, that'll be ideal. Oftentimes you're gonna run into 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. So in this particular case, we have 3 bedrooms on the top unit and 1.5 bathrooms. So we have a master half a bathroom. I mean, in the master bedroom, we have half a bathroom. So it's 3, 1.5. The top unit, the middle unit, and the bottom unit has 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. Okay, so the tenant moved out. The tenant had been there for quite some time, even when we bought the property. So the unit was not in good shape. So we had to pretty much rehab the entire place. So that's the kitchen, the dining area. This is the living room. That's one of the bedrooms. This is the master bedroom that has half a bathroom. That's another bedroom. That's a third bedroom. And this is the half a bathroom. And this is the full bathroom. Okay, full bathroom. So this is it. So this is the apartment. Now let me tell you what we did with this building. This has every unit, the top and the middle one has about 1,200 square feet. Guess what? They used to be 2 bedroom, 1.5 bath. So what we did is we pretty much were able to add another bedroom. So we made, instead of two huge 2 bedrooms, we turned this into a 3 bedroom. That's just how you can add value and maximize your rental income. So in this case, does it say how much? Yeah, we're renting these for 1,700, okay, which is quite a lot, right? Because 1,700, that's pretty much what you get for a single family home. Does that make sense? Are you seeing? Are you getting an idea of the cash flow that this can generate? Just one apartment. And the reason why is because Wheaton is a very good neighborhood. Okay, it's a A- neighborhood. So 1,700, I think we're getting 1,650 for the middle one, and I believe we're getting about 1,400, 1,350 or 1,400 for the garden unit. Okay, but again, we pay for the trash, we pay for common electric on the front and back staircases, we pay for water, and that's about it. Everything is electric, even in the units. So the only thing that they pay is for electric, okay? And also we need to do the snow removal and lawn care. So those are additional expenses. But if you think about it, the cash flow on this building is gonna be about, let's say, 1650. I'm gonna do the garden. 1350 plus 1700 plus 1650, 4700. Okay, that's the rental income. Okay, and our mortgage is 2,600. 2,600. So let's say 2,700. So we still have 2,000 left. Out of the 2,000, we're gonna pay the utilities, right? The maintenance, the upkeep. So knock off 500 out of the 2,000, then we end up with 1,500 positive cash flow on this building. 1,500. That means that each unit, each door is cash flowing $500. Does that make sense? Are you following what we're getting at with multi-unit? Cash flow on multi-unit is way better than in single-family homes, okay? Because the cost of the unit is a lot less. If you wanted to buy a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath single-family home in Wheaton, it's gonna be 250 at least, 250,000. So that's the biggest difference, okay? Obviously, you need to deal with turnover. You need to pay more in operating expenses. But at the end of the day, it's totally worth it if you want to focus on cash flow. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Hugo, how much money did you have to spend to fix it up?
Great question, Fred. So spent, I can tell you, the kitchen spent about, the kitchen cabinets, appliances, it was quartz granite. We did the flooring, the lights, a little bit of plumbing. We spent about 10,000. The bathroom was, no, 9,000. The bathroom was 5,000. So right there is 14,000. For the paint was 2,300. So what else? We also painted the common areas. So we spent easily 20,000 just to upgrade the unit. But still, it's totally worth it. If you think about it, if we got it rented for 1,700, we're gonna recoup the 20,000 in about a year's time. So 17 times 12, right? So in about a year's time, we're gonna get our money back. So yeah, no, we want to make sure that if the neighborhood commands a nice rehab, we provide that, right? If it's a great neighborhood, you've got to provide a nice product, okay, so that you can command top rents. If we didn't do a nice job on this rehab, guess what? We wouldn't be able to command 1,700, because for 1,700, right, they can get a really nice place somewhere else. We would be able to get maybe 1,300 or less if it was in a really bad shape. So that's super important. Great question. Are there any other questions so far?
I'm sorry, Hugo, what was the purchase price on that particular building?
This building, we got it for I believe 385, 389.
And that's a legal 3 flat or legal 2 flat within law?
No, it's a legal 3 flat. Yeah,
Got
so
it.
we always check. That's a great point. When you get into multi-unit, you always need to check zoning, right? You want to make sure that,
Yes.
because that can change the value drastically. Okay?
And what neighborhood is that in again, Hugo? I'm sorry, I missed it.
In Wheaton.
Wheaton, okay.
Wheaton. Yeah, in DuPage. This is DuPage County.
Got it. And your taxes on that property are how much?
About 8,000.
Okay.
And we appeal taxes every single year. So the county assesses taxes every 2 years. No, actually every 3 years, sorry. But you can appeal taxes every single year. So we hire a firm that all they do is tax appeal. So every year we appeal taxes to get a reduction one way or another.
So have you cross-collateralized any of these buildings to purchase another building?
No, we have not. We have not.
Okay.
Excuse me, Hugo.
Yes.
You have a flat roof on this property?
Yes. That's actually no. This is not a flat roof.
Oh,
This is
okay.
not a flat roof. It's got a pitch, but it's not a flat roof.
Oh, okay. Because I was always told flat roofs is a no as far as purchasing.
We have another building. The address is 420 Prospect Boulevard in Elgin. This is a flat roof, okay? For Prospect, yeah, this is it. It's a flat roof. Let me see if you can see the building. Okay, yeah, the picture is a little bit blurry. So that's a 4 flat. It's a flat roof. We replaced the roof. So yeah, flat roofs, if they're not done properly, can give you headaches. So that's just the only difference. It's typically rubber, flat roof. But yeah, again, this property, these are 2-bedroom, 1 bath, all of them. It has a basement. So in the basement, we have laundry machines, 2 washers, 2 dryers. And so we put new windows, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. The rehab on these, was okay. I mean, we didn't do the same quality as in Wheaton because Elgin, this is on the east side of Elgin. So the better side of Elgin is the west side, west of the river. But we're getting about average, I would say 1,100 per unit. So this will bring 4,400. Taxes are about 8,000. We pay for water, common electric, and we don't pay for gas. So there are only 4 furnaces. So the good thing about this is that each unit has their own furnace in the basement. So water heater and furnace. Okay, so they pay for their own gas, heating gas and cooking gas, which is huge, right? You don't want to pay for fuel because that's super expensive. That helps the cash flow on this property. Okay. Oh, the same for the Wheaton property. This property has 3 furnaces, 3 water heaters. That's what you want. You don't want to end up paying the gas bill, okay? Because gas bills are gonna, like, man, kill your cash flow. If you end up paying for heating and cooking gas on all units, oh my goodness, your bill is gonna, especially in the winter, it's gonna be close to 1,000, 700, 1,000. It could be very, very expensive. So when we look at multi-unit properties, we want to make sure that they have separate furnaces, separate utilities, and that's going to help boost your cash flow. Like the property that I was showing you on the analysis in Des Plaines, that the cash flow was 347. It had separate furnaces. Each unit had a separate furnace. That's what's going to help your cash flow go through the roof. Okay, not paying for the gas. Okay.
Okay, one more question. What about, are tenants required to have their own fire insurance, a fire rental?
Yes, so they need to have their own renter's insurance. That's a great question. Renter's insurance, we take cats. We're very picky on dogs. We've been very fortunate. We don't have any dogs in none of the multi-units. They only have cats. Because with dogs, the only thing that you need to be careful with is certain breeds that are in the dangerous list, because insurance companies are not going to pay out claims if something was to happen with dangerous or vicious breed. So that's something that you really have to be careful about. So I've had tenants that say, hey, and that's the first question they ask, hey, I have a pit bull or I have a Doberman, and right away I'm going to say, I'm sorry, but due to insurance liability, I won't be able to rent out. We don't take those breeds. As simple as that.
So Hugo, for these, or like the 3 flats, you mentioned that with the ones that you've updated, you manage them yourself. Are you managing Wheaton? Are you managing any of your other multi-units?
No, those are the ones that we don't manage. No, not at all. Because I don't want to be chasing them for rent. And then what I love about Secure Pay One is the company that we use. They're on top of making sure they pay on time. They're going to be calling them, sending them text messages. They're going to enforce late fees. They're on top of renewals, and we increase rents every single year. Okay.
So how do you assess how much you're going to raise the rents? Do you just do a straight 2 or 3%, or do you do a market analysis for the area?
No, we typically try to go up in Elgin between $20 to $50.
Okay.
A month for the renewal. Wheaton, we have like the previous tenant was paying, I think, $1,500. Now we raised the rent to $1,700, but we just rehab this property.
So Hugo, so let's say if you use this service and a tenant moves out because their lease is expired, do they assist you with finding renters, or do you use your own service, or how do you find your renters then after they move out and you're using this service, the management service?
Okay, great question. So when there's a vacancy, what we do is we do the marketing. So we put it on the MLS, we put it in Section 8, and we put it in Craigslist. When you put it on the MLS, it's going to go into Zillow, Redfin, all these websites. We put out for rent sign. That works amazing as well. It's super important. And then our team from DealVault manages the inquiries, and we schedule showings. We only do maybe 3 showings a week because we want to create this sense of urgency. So we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Saturday, and then we have a leasing agent go out there to do the showings. But we say showing is on Wednesday, 6:30 or 7 o'clock, and boom, we have 3, 4, 5 families come see the property. So we want to create that sense of urgency. But for those brokers who see the property on the MLS, they can go at any time. If it's vacant, then they can use a lockbox. We have a lockbox, so they can check it out whenever.
Do you have a rubric, or what's your criteria for renting? For instance, like If you have a 700 or above credit score, then it's, let's say, 1 month deposit. If you have a 650 to 699, do you do like a month and a half or 2 months? What is the rubric? What is your criteria for qualifying to rent your place?
Great question. So the question number one that we ask is we want to know income. So we qualify, when we talk to them for the first time, we qualify them with income. So if the rent is 1,700, the rule of thumb is you multiply this by 40, and this should be their yearly income. If they don't make anywhere near 68,000, so if, let's say if they make 50,000, we're going to tell them up front, hey, I'm sorry, but your income does not qualify for our requirements. And guess what? That's the only reason that you can discriminate against tenants, financials. If they don't make enough, then you cannot rent it. But there are so many, there are like 11, 12 protected classes that you, like source of income is one of them. Section 8, you have to rent to Section 8. I mean, you cannot say no to Section 8. So number one is rental income. They have to make 68,000. So the people renting this unit, they're making, let me see, so that's 30, they're making 12, 24, 30, they're making 72,000 a year. So what was the criteria? Yeah, they just passed it by 4,000. So they're making 72,000. We want to see anything over 600. Now, when it comes to security deposit, now there's a new landlord-tenant ordinance in Cook County. You cannot charge more than 1.5 security deposit, okay? So that's super important. And that came into effect as of June 1st. June 1st, if I'm not mistaken. So before, yeah, when the FICO was less than 600, we were required 2 months of security deposit. We can no longer do that, okay?
So when you raise their rent, let's say by $20 or $50, do you tell them that they have to give you the additional security deposit so it matches?
No, we don't. And that's something that we should, but we don't. I've seen that discrepancy where the security deposit is short from what they're paying now. But if
I see that more on the commercial side. I see that more commercial, like stores and stuff, but not that much. I mean, it should be, but most people that do residential don't do it. That's why I'm asking.
Exactly. So residential, we're not doing that. Yeah, we just keep the security deposit as is. But yeah, no, great question on qualifying. And obviously we check their credit, we check their criminal background. And by the way, now that's something new that came in March this year. You cannot discriminate against criminal records. Okay, so if you look at the criminal record first, you cannot base your decision on it solely. So that's something that, but we check that. We also check eviction background. So if they've been evicted, that's a big no-no. Even if they make all the money of the world, we won't take somebody with evictions.
Right.
Because that's just a bad sign. We can take somebody with a bankruptcy that makes good money. We've had that case that somebody was making like 90,000, but she had filed bankruptcy a few years back. So that's okay. If they make income and the credit is, just in the process of getting better, it's okay as long as you make the income. And that we see the history in the last year that you've been paying on time, that's what matters to us. No evictions, no major criminal records. We've seen from speeding tickets to gun possession, armed possession. We've seen narcotics. We've seen domestic violence. So when it has like gun possession or narcotics, that's too super dangerous, right? Because if they're in gang members, this could be a big disaster.
So Hugo, how do you handle somebody if they're a sexual predator and you have kids in your building? Like if they apply and they do the criminal background check and they come up as a sexual predator, a registered sexual predator, and you have kids in the building, can you not? Can they not qualify for the apartment or your rental because of that?
That's a great question. We have not, we're able to see that if it happens, but we've not had the case. But as far as I know, today, right now, uh, it's not it's not a protected class. So we will not accept them because we jeopardize the safety of the remaining tenants. So we
Right.
won't take sexual predator, and it's not a protected class. Um, So yeah, no, that's super important, right? You want to you want to provide a safe environment, not only for the
Absolutely.
current tenants, but for the remaining tenants. So yeah, we're super careful about that. And in fact, Frida is pretty big on that. So we check actually the neighbors. Uh, they are in
Right.
the registered sexual predators.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's super important. No, I mean, great questions, um, George.
You
How are
mentioned
you?
in what? I'm sorry. One of your other video or one of your other classes, you mentioned that there's a company, and I forgot I have to go through my notes, but where you could, if you have equity, they'll partner with you the equity out of
Oh
your
yes.
what
Unison. I just put it on the chat. Unison.com.
Unison. Yeah. And will they
Unison.com.
do commercial buildings or not?
They do investment properties for sure. I'm not sure about commercial because we don't own any commercial, but they do for
Will
sure
they do
investment
mixed
property.
mixed use maybe like stores and rent residential?
I'm sure they do because that's considered yeah, if you have mixed use, I know they do investment. So that's a great question. Um, I'm not sure if they do mixed use, but for sure investment properties. That like
Okay.
this would be an example of an investment property, so they would do that.
Okay. I can't hear you.
Hello.
Thank you, Mark. Go ahead. Sorry, you had a question, George. Did you have another question? Great
No,
question, George.
you were I didn't hear you. So now I hear you though.
Oh, okay. Did somebody else have a question?
Yes, I have a question. This is Teresa.
Yes.
Do you allow smoking in your building?
I'm
Smoking
talking
and
to the computer
You
and they're
know,
not
great
hearing me.
question. Um, Great question about smoking. We put signs in the common areas, no smoking. Okay,
okay.
but that's something that we cannot always control. So if they are smokers, we've had complaints because if you smoke, before we used to have a tenant in the garden unit that they used to smoke like a chimney. So tenants upstairs would complain because the smoke would rise up to the upper units. So that was a big problem. Despite the fact that we let them know that smoking is not allowed, they would still smoke. Um, so that's part of the headaches of working with multi-unit, right? That you're going to get phone calls. I don't want to hear from tenants complaining about like either noise or smoke. That is why they're going to call the property management company. I want them to deal with those issues. So that's exactly one of the reasons why you don't want to manage these properties because it's going to drive
Right.
you insane. Yeah.
Good. Then my other question is, what if you see a really great potential of purchasing a multi-unit, like let's say a 16 unit, right? Kind of
Yes.
like big. And so are there like partners investments that would go in a deal with you, or would banks lend you the money? I'm just trying to understand how that works. How do they purchase those big deals? How are you able to get one of those?
Okay,
Just
so
wondering.
great question. Great question. So the first thing that you need to do is, the analysis, just like I showed we're analyzing some 12 units right here. Some of these are 6 and up, so 12 units. So first of all, the numbers need to make sense. Once you find something that makes sense, then the key is to get it on the contract. But here's the challenge. On these properties that are 5 units and up, when you submit an offer, you also need to submit proof of funds or an approval letter, a line of credit of some sort from a lender. Okay, so that's going to be the key. So before you pursue multi-unit, you have to establish partnerships. Okay, how are you going to fund the transaction? Because on these big properties, you're going to need to put down 25%. There's no other way around that. Like commercial is 25% down, at least on the purchase. Okay, so you're going to need, typically the way it's done is that you gather a few people, few investors who are interested in doing multi-unit, and then you can create an LLC, for instance, where you specify what each of them contributes money-wise, and then what their responsibilities are for them, and how the distribution of the profits are going to be done. But again, when you partner up on a big building that is going to be for rental, oftentimes it's just hard, right? Doing a partnership on a rental property, because then down the road people may want to bail out. So then you're going to need to buy them out. So it's a little bit of a challenge to do a partnership on a rental, especially a big building. But if you have the same common goals, then it's easier. But yeah, you're going to need a lot of reserves, 25%. So that's where the challenge comes, just raising that capital.
Thank you for that.
No problem, Teresa. Anybody else? So George, I know that you are dealing with, you have commercial properties and mixed use. So tell me more about your experience on analyzing these deals, refinancing, because I know you're in the process of looking into that.
Yeah, hey Hugo.
Yes. Yeah, we hear you, George.
I'm sorry, repeat that question. I didn't hear you. You broke up.
Can you tell us about your experience, because you understand multi-unit really well. I know you're in the process of looking into refinancing, buying, selling. So can you tell us more about your experience? What is it that you look for when analyzing multi-units?
The biggest thing that I look for is like what you pointed out, Hugo, that every unit has separate heat and that the tenant pays for it. It doesn't matter if it's all electric or if it's gas, but the tenant has to pay for it, because if they don't pay for their own heat, they don't appreciate it, and they leave windows open, doors open, and you only have issues. And then there goes your profit, basically. That's one thing I look for. Another thing, that all the mechanicals are in relatively decent shape. Anything that has, if it's a multi-unit building, depends on how big it is, but anything with galvanized pipes, I stay away from. There has to be newer plumbing, meaning copper. The bathrooms could be old. That's okay. Those are all, basically you could repair them or you could gut them and redo them. Kitchens, those are all, like you say, cosmetic. But I look at the mechanicals. The mechanicals need to be relatively decent or newer. Electric, I'm not so worried about unless you're getting into the really old buildings where you still have cloth insulation on the wiring. So you have to be cautious. I mean, I have a building that had that, but all right, basically most of it has been redone. The only areas that still have cloth insulation on the wiring is the common, the hallways. But some of it, well, there's one hallway that was redone. I still got 2 hallways that haven't been redone. But those are the major things that I look for. And then again, I don't like flat roof buildings because, first of all, they're more expensive to maintain. They go bad quicker. And those are just a couple things that I look for. But I mean, again, if the price is right, I'm not scared of buying a flat roof building, but I look at, those are just the common things that I always look at. And then again, windows, because when you buy a bigger building, you could have 60 to 100 windows. So if you're replacing them, then that's quite a bit of money that you're going to be putting into a building. And look at the shape of let's say if it's a brick building, look at the shape of it, or if it's a siding building, look at the shape of the building. Make sure that there's no major foundation issues. If the building is leaning to one side, things of that sort. Those are the major things that I look at. I mean, the cosmetic things I'm not worried about. It's more of the mechanicals to make sure that the bones of the building are solid, that the foundation's solid, and everything else you could change over time, and that's not an issue. Another big thing, like you say, the numbers have to work, and there has to be. I make sure I never run numbers saying that it's going to be 90% occupied. Because you know what, when you go into some of the bigger buildings, it gets harder, and especially if you're in a challenging neighborhood, if you're in a C or D neighborhood, then you know what, you always have to count that one unit will be always, depends on how big the building is, 1 or 2 units will always be vacant. Just for your insurance policy. But if you have them rented, of course, you cash flow much better. But you know what, you might, they're more challenging tenants, and it's harder to screen in some of the more challenging areas. And I'm more familiar with the challenging areas. And I'm trying to, basically get into better areas like the A and B areas. But again, they're harder to find those type of deals, and the numbers are much tighter. But again, you will run at a 90% rental rate. But if you're in the more challenging areas, you will be challenged, and that building needs to be in relatively decent shape. But if it's really beat up, you're going to need a lot of money to rehab it. And you need the manpower, and you can't do it yourself. You need to have a team or a couple teams working when you're trying to, let's say if you bought like the building I had was vacant basically, and it was an 8-unit building, and I remodeled the whole thing and got it up and going. But it took me a good year and a half, about a year and a half to remodel not quite everything, but over 80% to get it to a place where it was habitable, got them rented. But it was tough. I'm not going to lie. I mean, would I do it again? I would, but you'd have to get it for the right price. But like you said also now, to do the gut rehabs, it's very difficult to do right now. But I also started with a building that had really good mechanicals, but it just everything was cosmetic that I needed to do in the building. So it was a lot, and it needed 3 new roofs, three new flat roofs.
Whoa. Now tell me about your thinking behind the flat roofs.
So you know what? If they don't know, if you get a roofer that doesn't really, even though they're licensed, doesn't mean that they always know what they're doing. So the problem is if they don't do the icing around the edges properly, if they don't pitch it properly, because there has to still be a little pitch. They don't attach the gutters or the wrong gutters. If they don't put the downspouts in the right spots, there's just so many little things that we don't think about that could happen. That you know what, they need to really do a good job. I mean, you get what you pay for, like they say sometimes. So you have to be cautious. That's all I could say is you have to be cautious. And I actually had one of the flat roofs was a tear off, and it was extremely expensive.
Yeah, of course.
So I mean, it's exponentially more expensive to do a flat roof than it is to do at least in my experience, than it is to do a shingle roof.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and it has to be done right.
Correct.
Otherwise, headaches big time. Now, do you look at the cap rate at all when analyzing commercial buildings?
That's what usually draws my attention, is I look at the cap rate, because if I see like it's a 4% cap rate, there's not enough meat on the bone. I mean, usually, but I'll look at it. But I try to look at something that's closer to the 7 or 8, if I could do something around there. But that's what usually draws my attention. And of course, neighborhood and the condition and the year of the building. Again, if it's a newer building and it's, let's say, a 4 or 5% cap rate, I really look at it closely, because cosmetically, it typically doesn't need as much work as a building that's, let's say, 60 or 80 years old. So, I always look at the year of the building when it was built, because if you buy old buildings that were, built around, whatchamacallit, like around 1900 or whatever, the early 1900s.
Yeah.
there's a lot more maintenance on those buildings than there are on the newer buildings and the newer technology that they use in the buildings.
Yeah, that's a great point. And because oftentimes they have not been updated. So you're dealing, like, as you said, galvanized piping, and
Yeah.
you're dealing with Romex on the electric, or um, smaller service boxes on the electric side. So yeah, no, absolutely great points.
And I'll be honest, Hugo, I look at, like even air conditioning units, like I like to have, I like the way I look at the apartments, and maybe I should look at it a little differently, but I like to have central air in all the units that I rent out is if it's possible, just because it's just the comfort of life and it's easier to rent them, and you typically get a better quality person because they're looking for those amenities. And so even though I might have a bigger building or whatever, a little bit bigger buildings, when I have central air and they see central air and dishwashers, they're like, wow, I want it. You know what I mean? It's like it attracts a different clientele. But if you have people that are not that particular, it's a different clientele that you're working with also.
Great point. And that makes them pay for the gas. When you have central
Yes.
central air, they pay for their own gas, which is good. Yeah, so absolutely. We stay away from radiators. When we see radiators, oh my goodness, I'm thinking about the gas bill, for the
Exactly.
entire building. Yeah, no, that's not good. Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Yeah, no, thank you, George. It was awesome. You're like right
And
on.
one other thing I also mentioned, when you look at the bigger buildings, you also have to walk the buildings and look around the foundation and on any stress marks on the bricks, because you know what? That the bricks will tell you everything. Or if you see that the building was tuck pointed, look at the way it was tuck pointed, because you'll see stress cracks in the building and you could see where they might have had potential problems. And sometimes they remedy them well, sometimes they don't, because they're disguising them. They put band-aids and they want to get rid of their problems. So you have to be very cautious when you look at the bigger buildings, because again, they're heavier, they might be older, usually they are. So those are just a few things that you want to be cautious of.
Right. No, great job. So thank you very much, George. Great thinking, great contribution to the topic today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey George, it's Ray. I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
How do you figure out the market cap in a given area to be able to compare, the calculation for the cap rate to see how we're doing?
You know what? I don't have I use a basic calculator that you get like off of Google to figure out the cap rate. But you know what? You could look at the list that DealVault has, and it tells you the neighborhoods, like what's a good rental area, and you want to go into the better areas, the A or B areas, and you will see just by even looking at past sales what the cap rates are, so you get a general idea of what you're looking for. But I mean, if you know like certain areas where you live around or where you like to own, you sort of hone in, and you like Hugo says, you want to pick areas that you know, and you just get more familiar with it. Like there's a few areas that I do know, and I constantly look in those areas, and those are the ones that I'm just really very interested in buying in those areas, because I know the clientele, I know how the units need to look, and what goes in that neighborhood and what doesn't go in that neighborhood. So I try to basically stay in those areas, but again, the market's really tight now. So, we have to wait till there's going to be a change in the market, and then maybe there'll be more opportunities.
Exactly.
Cool.
So here I have a slide, Ray, on cap rates. So pretty much you take the NOI divided by the purchase price, and that's the cap rate. So
Right.
if the NOI is 50,000, but the purchase price is $1 million, then your cap rate is 5%. Now they use
Right.
the
Yeah, I understand that. I was thinking about the market cap, where a lot of times the broker will give you a market cap, not a true cap rate, where
right,
that's like the average of what's going in a given area.
right. So
That
this is
maybe that's
exactly
more
what George was mentioning. I just put it on the screen. Building
right.
classification based on cap rates. So
Right.
the better neighborhoods, you're going to have a lower return, whereas the more challenging areas is going to be higher.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, maybe a market cap is more for commercial property for analyzing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I go by the cash flow and the debt coverage ratio.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So anything up to 5 units or so would just be do the same way we do a multifamily, pretty much, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you.
No problem. So here we have the cap rates. A, it's between 3.8 to 4.5. B, up to 5. C, between 5 and 6. And D, 7 and up. So now people have asked on the chat about where you can discriminate, where you cannot discriminate against. So the only thing that you can discriminate against is financial. So let me tell you what the protected classes are in Illinois. Okay, so in Illinois, these are the protected classes. Now, every village or county can add more onto this list. So let me show you. In Illinois, by default, race, color. So this is what you cannot discriminate against. Religion, national origin, sex, age, physical or mental disability, veteran status, genetic information, citizenship. Now, if you go to Cook County, right, the city of Chicago, they've added more. So you have, again, you have the standard from Illinois. So you have, I'm going to make this bigger. Right here. So you have race, color, ancestry, national origin, religion, sex, age over 40, okay? Disability, sexual orientation, gender. Now this is new, that pretends like marital status, parental status. So that source of income, this is what somebody was asking. So source of income, what's the latest protected class added? The reason why is because a lot of landlords were discriminating against Section 8, and that's source of income. The next one is military discharge status, credit history, employment only, and they've added criminals. So this is not up to date. So criminal, it's from 2021. So they have to add criminal as well. So source of income is very critical, and you're going to run across testers. They're going to call you and they're going to say, I have a Section 8 voucher. Do you accept Section 8? Guess what your answer should be all the time? Yes. And there's no reason why you don't want to have Section 8, because in my opinion, Section 8 is one of the best tenants that you can have. Why? Because you're going to have the rent on time. They tend to be great tenants. They take care of the property, and they do yearly inspections. Okay, what it means is that it's going to help you with the upkeep of your property. And not only that, the only drawback that I see with Section 8 is that once you're locked in a rental amount, you won't get yearly increases. You might get maybe 2% at the most. So it's not going to be going up along with the market. So that's the only drawback, okay? But other than that, it's just great to have Section 8 tenants. Are there any other questions on the line?
Hello, Hugo.
Yes.
How are you?
Good, Sam.
I want to know the eviction. I mean, that there is no reason to evict the Section 8, right? As long as the Cook County is paying the rent. So the tenant can stay for 5 years, 10 years, whatever they want, right?
Yeah, there's no reason to evict the Section 8 because you're going to get the money on time. Talking about eviction, you know, the eviction moratorium got extended till the end of July, okay? Now, July 18th, it's the deadline to apply for rental assistance. Super important, okay? So for those of you who have tenants that are behind, guess what? You have to have the rental assistance. So let me share with you this. Let me ask you, do you guys have tenants behind the rent? Anybody?
Hugo, I have one that's and just started this month, and I actually was looking for that information about the rental assistance to try to help them even fill out the paperwork for them so they get that help.
Perfect. So is this George?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. So let me give you a resource. Hold on. So George, yeah, I'm gonna send you the link with all the resources. The deadline is July 18th. Okay. So it's super, super important to apply. So I'm gonna send you, guys, send me an email to support@ChicagoDealVault.com, and then I'm gonna make sure that you get the link that gives you all the resources to apply for it. So it's super simple. It's a form that you fill out. You specify, you upload the lease. You also upload like a 5-day notice letter stating how far behind they are, and that's about it. Okay, super, super simple. And then
So
they've
Hugo,
given,
that's the landlord that fills it out, not the tenant. Is that correct?
yeah, exactly. So you fill it out as the landlord. You need to upload the lease. You need to upload a 5-day notice. And in fact, on Sunday, I'm gonna go through the process. Okay, I'm gonna send you the link today, George. But on Sunday at the Cash Flow Inner Circle meeting, I'm gonna go through the process because the deadline is July 18, and they can give you up to $25,000. So it's huge. Okay. Somebody said, what about if you evicted
Okay.
them while having the rental assistance?
Perfect.
Somebody's asking if you evicted them, do you still have the rental assistance? That's a great question. I believe they still need to be living in the property. Okay, if they're gone, I don't think you'll be able to get the assistance. But I'm gonna look into that. That's an amazing question, one. If you evicted them, but right now there's an eviction moratorium. So legally, you cannot evict them, right? So the eviction moratorium is until July, end of July. So technically, you cannot evict a single tenant right now. So that is why they're giving these rental assistance up to $25,000. So yeah, I think I just gave you the answer. You cannot evict them. There's an exception. You can have an emergency eviction if they are causing big time troubles, nuisance to the neighbors, to the other tenants, or if they're destroying the property, then you can evict them. Even though there's an eviction moratorium, there's an exception to it. So you need to meet certain criteria and you can have an emergency eviction, okay? They have been there for a year, but they were squatters. Oh, okay, you have squatters. Yeah, and I think they also have to sign the form. Okay, so you sign it, and they also have to sign it. So if there are squatters, yeah, you know, unless they're cooperating, but you need to have a lease and a 5-day notice. They also need to sign the form. Okay, so you both need to work together. You as the landlord and them as the tenant. Okay, so it's not only a one-way, like you as the landlord applying for the money and getting the money. No, it has to also have their signature. Okay. So yeah, no, thank you everyone for joining. Now I'm gonna send you text to send us an email to support@ChicagoDealVault.com if you want to join the Sunday 1 p.m. cash flow inner circle meeting. So we run 2 groups, the wholesale and the cash flow. We have about 80 people in each group. So we meet on Tuesdays for the wholesale group and Sundays at 1 p.m. for the cash flow. So if you're interested in doing either wholesales, buy and holds, or flips, you need to belong to these 2 groups. So what we do is we do deal analysis, we mastermind on both groups. We share resources, right? Whatever they need, we share resources. You're going to be in a team with a team lead. We have 10 modules that we go over in each of these platforms, training-wise, okay?
Hugo, I have a question for you. I'm sorry, I broke up and I had to get back on. This is George again. If you have a tenant that's month to month and they don't have a lease, can you still apply for that rent assistance or no?
So you don't have a lease, you're just going month to month?
You know what, with that one tenant, they were month to month, but you know what? If I need to, I could probably talk to them and go retro on the lease, whatever. And I mean, they're just a slow pay right now. That's what they are, but they're
Yeah,
behind.
yeah, that would help if you have the lease, because that's one of the requirements. You need
Okay,
to
I
upload it. So if you
get you.
can, because you need to work together with them, they need to sign it, so you might as well get them to sign this because it's for the benefit of both.
Right, right. That makes total sense. Thank you.
No problem. So yeah, if you need, we can give you also free access to Chicago DealVault for the next 30 days. And also, guys, I'm gonna give you a free ticket to the 3-day event. I purchased half the room already for the 3-day. That's for Chicago DealVault community. Okay, so we have 60 tickets in person. Okay, we're running out of them. We're giving out a lot for free. So if you're interested in attending the 3-day event organized by Andrew Holmes, Fridays, July 16, 17, and 18. That's a weekend. Please send us an email to support@ChicagoDealVault. We're going to either give you a virtual ticket or an in-person ticket. The value of that is either 67 or 167. Okay, so we'll make that available to you guys for the DealVault community. If you still don't have access to DealVault, we can give you 30 days for free. We want to make sure that you're successful today. And also, we want to make sure that you join either the Wholesale or the CASHFLOW Inner Circle group, okay? Super, super important because we do deal analysis. In fact, today we closed on a wholesale deal that is part of the Wholesale Inner Circle group, okay? And for the CASHFLOW Inner Circle group, we're analyzing 4 awesome deals that came through the shadow inventory. So for those of you who have access to the shadow inventory and are part of the CASHFLOW Inner Circle group, we're boots in the ground right now on these 4 great properties that just came today. So that's what we do, deal analysis. We try to make things happen for you to be successful today. So thank you for joining today, and send us an email to support@ChicagoDealVault.com, and then we'll get back to you, give you a free ticket, access to DealVault, and invite to our next CASHFLOW or wholesale meeting, okay? So thank you everyone for joining. I look forward to seeing you all next week. If I don't see you before the holidays, have a wonderful 4th of July weekend. We won't have a Sunday meeting on 4th of July, okay? So have a wonderful holiday, and I look forward to seeing you all next week, okay?